Finally here.
Yes, we're here. We've been planning this for a long time.
Yeah.
I've got Brittany Rose here today with me, and I'm Sandra Tuszynska. Think Tuszyn's in the car. And we're going to be talking about funerals and the business of basically putting bodies down the ground or burning them. Mm-hmm. And Brittany's in that line of work. So
yes.
Do you want to tell us what you do?
Yes. So I'm a funeral director, and I have only been doing this for about a year and a half. And I started in the funeral industry, not as a director, but just doing everything. So from undertaking to mortuary prep to attending the funerals and paperwork and stuff like that. And now I do more of the director side, so I do less in the mortuary, but I still do pretty much anything and everything that needs to be done. So yeah, it's been a good experience, but I, as you know, have some qualms about practices in the funeral industry and how, and I think there's a lot of ways that it could be done better.
Yeah. Before we jump into that, how did you come about to 1.5 years ago? How did you come to go, I want to be a funeral director or a mortician?
Well, it all started in the gully one day as you and I were working in the gully and
we're working on Mother of Millions, pulling out weeds.
Yes, we were pulling out Mother of Millions, and I just had the feeling like I would just love to, because I'm into mediumship and talking to spirits and stuff like that, but also have a bit of a bent towards an interest in environmental regeneration too. I felt like it would be awesome if there was a funeral company that did things in a way more eco-friendly way, and you could do some land regeneration while you were burying bodies, but you could also talk to families about the spirit world, and you could talk to the spirit of the person who's passed, and it could just be like a complete revolution of the funeral industry. And then I thought, okay, in theory I'd love this, but I don't know in practice would I actually, so I need to get a job in the funeral industry and see if my theory is correct and if I can even do this, because how do you know if you can do that kind of work until you've done it, you know? Mm-hmm. You haven't dealt with dead bodies in a normal life until you work in that industry, usually, or another industry. But so that was why I decided I needed to get a job in the funeral industry.
Yeah. And I remember pretty much we talked about it. I got really excited as well because I was like, oh my God, we can like decompose the bodies in a really, really natural way and get the fungi to sort of like decompose, or not decompose, but take care of all the chemicals that are, you know, involved in our bodies, and which we'll talk about in a minute as well. But what was exciting about it was you went and wanted to get work experience pretty much in that, like, was it the next day or within the next few days after that?
Yeah, that week. Yeah. Yeah. And then I got a job like straight away. Yeah, which I didn't know if I'd be able to do, because I didn't know if I needed to be trained as a mortician first, but they said that they'll train me on the job. And it just happened like that, you know, as a result of the desire. So, yeah.
Very exciting, very exciting.
And it was such an exciting conversation that we had in the gully that day. Like, just, you know, bouncing ideas back and forth, and you being a soil microbiologist and talking about J. Rim Lee and the bodysuit that she made, and the TED talk that she did about the mycelium breaking down the body and things like that. And it was just getting more and more exciting the more we talked about it. So,
and that was a long time ago, but then you took the initiative to go and get a job. And tell me more about this the side of things of how, what are the current processes? So like, for example, you know, someone dies, what happens from that moment on?
So someone dies, and then the family or the hospital or the police will call the funeral home, and then undertakers will come and collect the body and either take it back to the funeral home mortuary or to coroner, wherever it needs to go. So if it's been a car crash or a suspicious death, it might need to go to coroner. So they have to go to coroner for an autopsy before they can go to the funeral home. And then from there, the funeral director will engage the family and just ask them to come in and make funeral arrangements. That's the family's already chosen their chosen funeral home by that point. And I think it's important to say that with coroner's cases, the government contracted undertaker has to collect bodies from those cases. So if the body has to go to coroner, there's one funeral home in, say, an area, like we live in the South Burnett, we live near Kingaroy, and so there's one government contracted undertaker in Kingaroy, but there's 3 funeral homes in Kingaroy. So if it's a coronial case, the government contracted undertaker will come and collect the body. That doesn't mean that the family has to then go with that funeral home. They can still choose whichever one they want. So the family chooses the funeral home, the body ends up at the funeral home, the funeral arrangements are made, the mortuary prep is done, and then the funeral is had, and then there's either the burial or cremation.
And your job initially was basically to work with the body, to go to the scene, pick up the body, bring it back, wash the body, do all the prep before the funeral.
And that was interesting because there was more prep than I realised. So there's the bathing of the body and doing the makeup, but there's also the stitching of the mouth, and the you can, a lot of times you'll either inject the eyeballs or put in a little plastic eye cap underneath if the family's having a viewing, so that it looks more normal, because the eyeballs deflate once you pass and there's no blood. So it's certain things are done to make the body look more normal, to keep the mouth shut, to keep the eyes looking rounded and things like that, so that people can view their loved one in a certain state.
But that's an issue, isn't it? Because from an environmental perspective, you're using chemicals and plastics to do that. Is that so?
And so potentially you could use maybe biodegradable eye caps and things like that, because I think there's something, I'm in two minds about it. I think there's two sides to it, because I think that because people don't have much faith in the afterlife and the spirit world, people get unnecessarily attached to the physical body of their loved one when the loved one dies, and so they want it to be preserved, and some people want the body to be embalmed and it needs to look as alive as possible even though it's not, and we use formaldehyde and embalming fluid and plastic and all these things unnecessarily. But also at the same time, I think it is a nice thing for people to have a viewing and be able to spend that last time with their loved one if they want to. Like I think that can be part of the process for people. So I think there's nothing wrong with caring for, bathing and beautifying a body to a degree, but you just need to do it in ways that aren't going to be toxic in the next phase of what's going to happen with that body.
That's right. And even, I mean, for me personally, I would prefer to have the body's eyes, the person that I cared for, their eyes closed, because I know they're asleep. The body's gone to sleep indefinitely, and it's going to now go through a decomposition process. So I guess it's just thinking about also, like, why do we want these things, and can that be done differently? Can it be done with natural substances, but also can it just be done in a way where that's what a dead body looks like, and being more in touch with the beautiful process of decomposition that God designed for everything to decompose in nature, and including the human body, which I'm really excited about, that particular topic, how it all falls apart back to the constituent elements so that it can be regrown in a different life form.
And I didn't think much of it until talking to you and then doing more research about it, in the sense of, I just thought, if you just could bury a body into the ground, isn't that good? Like, that would be the way to go, that's the natural way and stuff like that. But after talking to you, I understood more that there needs to be a microbial process because of the amount of heavy metals and toxins in the body these days. It's not actually good for the ground to just put a human body in there. So there needs to be these additional helps.
Exactly.
Processes.
And you were reading earlier, we were just having a little discussion earlier previous to this, and that, what was it, how long does it take for that, once a body is buried and it's just buried like naked, as in with all its chemicals and everything that are in there, because it's called a process of bioaccumulation, where we actually take on and accumulate. A body's so good at accumulating in our fat cells all the heavy metals, all the chemicals, all the medications, all our hormones, the pill, everything's in there. So it takes a while, we said earlier, for a treat, for example, to be able to grow. Is that
I read somewhere that if you just bury a body in the ground without any mycelium or any composting process or a mycelium shroud or anything, nothing around that ground or in that soil can grow for at least a year afterwards. So because of all the chemicals and the toxins and the ammonia and stuff that are leaching out, and then that goes down to the groundwater and it goes to the soil around, and I didn't realize that it's actually that toxic. You don't think, you sort of just think, oh, it's a dead body, it will just rot now, but it's not that simple anymore.
Yes, exactly. And the other thing is as well, like there are also all these, you know, plastics involved in the process. Not only do we add them sometimes during the sort of funeral process, there are also, you know, implants of different kinds that people have. Sometimes, you know, breast implants, metals, which, you know, in the ground they will decompose if they're just metal. The pacemakers probably have like electronics and other things, lithium, maybe. So there's
even polyester clothing and coffin lining and stuff like that. Like that's not going to break. That's plastic. And we're burying that into the ground, and there's a lot of people getting buried. And if we were to burn it, there's not much. It's not a much better option, is it? No. A lot of people are going for that because it's a cheaper option and it seems like a more environmentally friendly option, but when you break it down, it's not, because of all the fuel that it takes. So yeah, it can, because you're having to burn a body at like 1,000 degrees Celsius for up to 3 hours. So that's a lot of fuel. So it can, you know, like it can take like $300 worth of gas to burn a body, but then all of the it's that unhealthy release of all of the toxins going into now the atmosphere instead of the soil. So then it's going to the clouds, and then it comes back down in the rain, and so it's not. Neither of these seem like a good solution to me. And
carbon dioxide getting released, and we were all talking about, you know, all these things like gases, and not just gases, but yes, heavy metals. They don't break down any further, so they go up in the atmosphere and they land on the people directly, sort of in the vicinity of the where the process occurs, where the cremation occurs. So definitely not. And also, the interesting thing is that coffins are super expensive, and some of them are elaborate. And then they get burnt as well in the process, and they may contain all kinds of nasty things as well.
Stuff, because like not a lot of the coffins are solid timber. Like some of them are, but that's getting more expensive. So where I work, the cheapest coffin is about $1,300, and that's a very basic like MDF coffin. So that's expensive for the cheapest one. And then the other coffins, a lot of them have like a laminate sort of thing on the outside to make them look like they're fancier wood than they really are. And so that's all, I don't know what's in that, but that's chemical. And then even when they are solid timber and you're just burning the wood, it's just such a waste of trees. In my opinion. Like there's a lot of wood that's going into making the coffins, and then they get used for 30 minutes to an hour for the funeral, and then they get burnt or buried. And I think about when we're burying these coffins as well, it's like there's plastic on the outside, there's plastic handles, there's plastic lining on the inside. So that's going to take ages to break down. Then when it finally does, and everything from the humans leaching into the groundwater and the soil around as well, it's process, like it's delaying the process of decomposition, but it's also adding a lot more unnecessary garbage into the environment doing it this way.
And then on top of that, if you're delaying the process of decomposition and it's all anaerobic, there's no oxygen present, you're actually creating very nasty disease-causing organisms, because these organisms are there's meant to be enough airflow in the soil, you know, soil has oxygen in it. Without all that, and basically it's relying on the body's internal microbial diversity to break down the body, but normally it's the soil organisms that will come in and balance that out. Initially, yes, it happens from the gut, you know, and a lot of the organisms we have in our gut also come from the soil, so it's lovely. But once you have, you know, there's no access of any other organisms other than the indigenous organisms of the body. And they're dealing with a lot of toxins, you know, and then you've got this, I can just imagine it's like a cesspool of gas forming, it's supposed to be nice, oxygen-rich environment, instead of this very, very deprived, you know, completely unnatural. It's like putting a coffin in the middle of a room and allowing the body to decompose that way. We know how much it stinks even when meat goes off, you know, without the microbes from the soil doing their job. And this just puts another layer of toxicity, a
Yes.
formation of toxicity as a result of the anaerobic breakdown of the body that's already full of toxins. It sounds very, very unpleasant.
Yeah.
Why would you want to put your loved one through that?
Yeah.
So, or burn them, which is just as just the idea of our ashes going up into the atmosphere and polluting other people just doesn't sound right to me, you know.
Yeah.
And then there's also another mechanism you mentioned. I forget what it's called. It's the body aquamation with using water, and what else?
Yeah, and so it's another name for it is alkaline hydrolysis. So it's an alkaline water. So usually they're using potassium hydroxide. So it's 95% water, 5% potassium hydroxide. So I didn't realize this until you said it, but that's not good for the environment, an alkaline solution like that. And thus, I feel like it's kind of greenwashing because they're saying, oh, this is a new, you know, like environmentally friendlier way of doing things. But I just see so many problems with it because one, it's not natural. It's putting a body into a cylinder of water and it's using 1,300, say approximately litres of water per aquamation.
Wow.
So, and then boiling that water to almost 100 degrees Celsius, so boiling, to boil essentially the body. They say it's faster decomposition, but I think using that much water, if we were doing that for every body, that's a lot of water especially on the driest continent on the planet, which we're on. And then also there's the energy. It's very fuel hungry, like cremation, to be boiling water for that long, because it takes 6 to 20 hours, whereas a cremation won't take longer than 3 hours. But yeah, so, and then I just don't think people are going to really go for it that much either, unless I understand that people do because they want to do a more environmentally friendly option if they can, and they think that this might be it. But aside from that, I don't really see people going for it that much, aside from that reason, because basically you're ending up with, to me you're ending up with a soup, you know, and then the bones that don't get broken down need to be ground up, and that's the same with cremation too. There are larger bits of the bones that need to be ground down afterwards in a processor, kind of like a blender for the bones. So you've got that as well, but I don't know if people are going to really want their loved ones going in that direction either.
And down the drain,
because they say, you know, the water, you know, it's so, you know, fine, it can go down the drain in the end. And it's like, well, that's kind of cool, but not as well. So
not very nice. And the fact that there's post-processing, whereas in the ground, you know, the bones become resource once again for organisms to feed the trees. So all of these, you know, even there's a beautiful other process where you decompose the body by composting it. There's this company. Do you want to tell us a little bit more about this amazing company in the US?
So Recompose. So Katrina Spade started this, and she was an architect, and then she designed a human composting facility, and I recommend checking it out because it's very cool. But it's basically putting the body into its little bed like a pod, and then putting organic matter on top. So they use straw and alfalfa sprouts and stuff, and then just putting it into its pod, and it's aerated, and they must turn the soil or something. But in the end, you end up with soil, and I love this because it's the only option out of all of them where you end up with a resource rather than just using or contaminating resources. So you end up with something, and it's more energy efficient, like way more. And then you can either, and I think it's efficient in cities as well, where because a big problem these days is land for burial. Like, it's getting super expensive because there's not a lot of space for it. And so in cities in Australia, this is approximate, but about 80% of people are going for cremation in cities and 20% burial. Where we live, people are old school, a lot of religious people, a lot of older demographics, so it's actually the other way around. So it's like 80% burials out here. But yeah, cremation's cheaper. But yeah, this is an option where you end up with soil. And
with
good
compost.
in cities. And then that soil can be taken to somewhere where they're doing some environmental project or something. But so I like the idea of natural burials as if you've got the land. But I think I think, one of the things that the human composting is good for is when you don't have the land.
Yeah, absolutely. And when it comes to even natural burials, it's a step up, isn't it? Because from what I've read, there is no, the clothes have to be natural that the person is dressed in, or it's a shroud that they put on as well, instead of a coffin, for example. There are sometimes cardboard boxes. There are a few in Australia, in Queensland. So it's kind of a step up, isn't it? Because there's like rules made by the different funeral places. If it's going to be a natural burial, it's got to have no chemicals, no plastics involved. So that's lovely. That's great. My question is still around, this whole problem of our bioaccumulation of all these toxins. But even if you naturally bury the body in the soil, and it's only a meter depth because of the microbial activity in there, which is nice. At the same time, it's like you still have this injection of toxins from the human body, unfortunately, because of the way we live these days, and the consumption of all kinds of preservatives that we eat in our food, which also affects the microbes. There's so much to think about. So I love this idea that we have of combining the two, combining the composting part and the natural burial. So still in the soil, still natural, without any chemicals, without anything, without a coffin, and then adding the microbial concoction, you could say, or what the microbes already live on. So, in a composting situation, you just want mulch of different types. I love that idea, and I know that biodiversity is always the answer, So putting lots of different kinds of organic matter, and I would suggest doing that from the existing environment within the grounds already, that will just make it like endemic microbes doing their job, taking the resource from maybe some weeds that are already growing there, because then you're regenerating the land by using the weeds.
Do you mean using the weeds as mulch?
Yeah. Say like you've got lantana infestation on the land, because I suppose what we would love to do is to get land that's already like damaged and scarred, so we can regenerate it, and the next level would be regenerating a forest on top of that land. And then instead of people coming to, they might come to the forest and come to visit the tree they want to, but because of the mediumship, which we'll describe and talk more in depth about, they might want to learn to actually communicate with their loved one, where they don't have to visit anywhere, but they actually constantly can be in contact with their loved one. So that's, I think, the most exciting bits, the regeneration of the forest, taking away all the chemicals and making death more sort of seeing it as a wonderful process rather than something really bad as society sees death at the moment. We just want someone else to take care of the dead ones, don't we? Of our loved ones that have passed on, or anyone that has. It's seen as a waste. It's seen as something horrific, whereas we can see it as a resource plus an educational, from the mediumship perspective, the education of humanity as to that not only death is just a continuation of life, which we haven't, as society, we don't really, even though people are religious, there's really not much faith in that at all. And that's a scientific fact, as we know, that happens. But also the body as a product that's now useful to regenerate the land that we've damaged.
I like it.
Regenerative.
It's like the physical thing is like an analogy for what's happening spiritually. Like it's a continuation of life, even after the death. So, and can you, because your expertise is soil microbiology and stuff, where there's two things that are already sort of available out there, that we've just talked about. So the human composting is not legal in Australia yet, but I'm working on it, or not in Queensland at least. And then there's the natural burial. But what your idea has been is combining both, which you touched on just now, but can you talk a little bit more about that, of the combining this idea of the human composting and the natural burial to make it more a proactive process, rather than just ditching a body in the ground that and without the microbes and stuff like that, because it's just super interesting listening to you talk about it, because you're so enthusiastic and knowledgeable about it.
What's missing is the fact that soil microbiology is already so depleted, we've already done so much damage, like 2/3 of world soils are pretty much dead. None of this microbial life that feeds plants and feeds us as a result exists anymore, you know, because we've depleted the soils, we've ploughed them, we've poisoned them. So natural burial is great, and especially if it's in a natural area that hasn't been much disturbed, but we want to, you know, no one wants to go and cut down a forest to bury people and put tombstones on there, you know, it defies the purpose, which actually has been done.
That's how it's done.
So when we've got the natural soil, it's great. It's got some microbial organisms still doing their jobs. But what I'm thinking is, like, why don't we combine the composting with the burial, because it's still in the ground, so it's in situ. You don't have to take that away then and put it somewhere else. It's regenerating something that's already damaged, which is the soil, but then adding the organic matter, which has the organisms, because by default, every leaf, every twig, you know, every branch it's impregnated with microbes, particularly fungi, and fungi love to hold on to heavy metals, which bacteria can't break down, nothing can, because heavy metals are at their, you know, their sort of elemental level. They can't go anywhere into smaller particles, but they can travel and poison and contaminate. But if we were to transform them, so to speak, by allowing them to intermingle and be absorbed into fungi and the plants, it stays as part of the nutrient cycle, so they don't move away. You know, they don't go anywhere. They don't. We don't want them in our waterways. We don't want to be putting them in the groundwater. So that's the beauty of it. You've got the microbes, and then you've got both fungi and bacteria, and the creatures that consume them will transform every part of the body, and some of the microplastics that are in the blood as well, because we're full of microplastics these days as well. So that's another problem of cremation. It's all going up into the atmosphere, and then we breathe it into our lungs. It's terrible, you know. So having the microbes deal, a lot of microbial organisms will actually decompose plastic into elemental forms, and if you've got a biodiversity of them, that ensures that it doesn't get stuck on some level where it's actually even worse than the beginning microplastic. Oftentimes you break something down, a chemical, and it becomes even more toxic. Like a lot of pesticides are like this. You know, you take one microbe will work on it, it will break some bond, and whatever results from that is actually more toxic than the beginning chemical that you started with. So when you have it's pretty sad, because you think, oh, microbes will deal with it. No, you need a plethora and a consortium. One organism will deal with this part, one will break this bond, one has this enzyme, another one has another. And that's the beauty of using nature, and especially like plants that we can use, like weeds that are growing there, cacti that we have prickly pear growing in the environment, full of moisture. So now the decomposition needs moisture. You won't need as much rain or relying on irrigation. We can use certain plants to literally make a beautiful microbial service to decompose the body to a level where it just becomes very, very like part of nature, back into soil, regenerates the soil, and then you grow the plants in there. The native vegetation that we need to bring back to create more rain and to have more oxygen and, you know, reduce carbon dioxide level, all those beautiful things that we need forests for. I think the bodies, you know, the spiritual aspect of it, and the taking responsibility for all the chemical disaster that we've created and our bodies are a temple of. You know, we're like, this is what the world, this is all that's wrong in the world is in this body, and here are all the list of chemicals we can this is what we've eaten throughout our lives. You know? So,
and so you're saying basically like the fungi and the mycelium and all of that, it's basically like a filter. It's filtering
essentially,
out the heavy metals and stuff, all the toxins that are in the body, so that it's not just going into the soil and stuff.
It's like filtering it out and decomposing it and eating it and taking it into themselves. So when they get eaten, the creatures that will take that on will release a transformed form of it, and that becomes food for the plant directly. And so all those creatures that are normally missing, like the nematodes and amoebae, which are part of the protozoa, they're these tiny little creatures that eat the bacteria and the fungi. And if we have them, which are, as I said, they're very damaged, we have almost eliminated them. From what I'm thinking, how it should be, the level of these organisms and how little I'm seeing them in the microscope when taking soil samples, I'm inclined to say oftentimes they are missing, you know, very much so. And we need to have them back. And they do exist in their natural environment. We just need to sort of feed them, and what better way to feed them than give them a toxic body to
Body.
decompose?
Yes, and this is why I also love, like, it's not just that it's creating soil and that's cool, like the human composting aspect of it, but like one of the biggest like critical problems that we're facing with the environmental damage is the topsoil that actual food can grow in. Like the loss of topsoil is one of our biggest problems as a race, and I don't know if people know that.
Yeah.
And I was thinking, you know, if you were doing, because originally I was thinking I'd like to have a company where I was doing human composting the way that Katrina Spade's doing it and Recompose, which, you know, what we're talking about here is doing something different, so that might not be the outcome. But what I liked about getting 4 wheelbarrows out of one body, like one body can turn into 4 wheelbarrows of soil, and that includes the mulch and stuff like that. But that's a lot of soil at the end of the day, and soil is what we need. Like it's going to be a problem to grow food in the future.
Yes, it's becoming a problem already.
Yeah.
Huge one. Yes, and you know, the beauty of this is this is what I love about also the fact that there's mediumship involved in this, because if you educate people that we can regenerate landscapes using human manure, for example, our waste, as well as our bodies, all these things that everyone's like, take this away from me, we don't want it.
I don't want to do
we would love to take it from you. But as long as you know that understanding is that having the ashes in your urn on your mantelpiece or whatever, or having that funeral, the tombstone to go to, is not an attachment in people. When that becomes like people don't really feel that that's necessary for them, they no longer need it. Now we can talk about real soil regeneration with a lot of bodies that die every day. And also do composting experiments as well, where, you know, even if you don't want to build in the city, I understand what these guys are doing. It's amazing because it's you know, it's contained. I think it can be done more naturally in Australia because we've got the land and the temperature and things, you know. So I think land, but also we could even do a similar thing on the land, in the ground, and still give a lot of compost away, you know. So that can be done as well, and then we can just spread it and give it to people that are and I know that's going to be like, well, we're going to be eating the people then. But that's, where do you think your body came from in the first place? I'm always thinking about which dinosaur was, you know, what am I, like, all these components came from stars, from stardust, you know, from, it's all recycled all the time. We are made out of our great grandparents. And that
and that's what I think as well. Like, it's people might initially have this feeling of like, we can't eat vegetables out of soil that was a dead human compost, but it's like, that's actually so natural, and it's a scientific process. It's, by the time it's soil, it's not a body anymore. And I just don't think we're going to have the luxury to be worrying about these things in the future if things keep going the way that they are.
Yes, exactly.
And I think if you can create soil, that's like creating water or...
Because in this, what I'm understanding, like when they compost it, it's the bodies, so the elements from the bodies and the mulch combined together, isn't it? Like really, and that becomes soil food, but also partly soil because you've got all the minerals that might not be present in the mulch as much as in the body, which is kind of very interesting. I guess it doesn't have the mineral and the, you know, the sand, clay and silt particles, but it's got to be elements, you know, so it becomes food once again for plants, which definitely, I think, I'd love to have a big pit and, you know, sort of decompose all kinds of things in there, human manure and bodies and, you know, roadkill animals off farms that are killed. Oftentimes it's, you know, the farmer has to dig the big hole. There could be a facility where you actually, locally, you know, there could be pieces of land all over the place that are designed for this sort of enrichment.
Enrichment and growing of trees.
Exactly. And the idea really, for me, like the fact that a forest can be grown out of human bodies being, you know, servicing the plants to grow, and then habitat being created for animals and wildlife. I don't think it's like a really, really lovely gift that the body is. And that's how it's supposed to be. And now we have to make it into, you know, we have to go through all the rigmarole of dealing with certain laws, because laws are often designed to do the opposite of that still, you know, and we need to actually change how it is, and because going back to nature is always going to be our solution, isn't it, for everything. And I'm just going to look at what other questions I have related to that, because I really want to talk about mediumship. I think we've covered all of the burial. Yeah, we've basically provided the solution. We've covered all of the issues like plastic and chemicals use and...
Yeah, I think just the only other thing is that doing it this way would be so much cheaper. You know, we were
That's
talking
right,
a lot
the
about the
costs.
costs.
Yeah, so tell us more about this. How much it costs currently on average to bury a person?
So on average at the moment here in Queensland where I live, where we live, it's like an average funeral, say, okay, even if you were just doing a direct burial where you're not even having a funeral service, that can still be like $11,000. Or like, a direct cremations like can be anywhere from like $3,500 to $6,000. But you say you were having a service and you were doing a burial and stuff, it's not uncommon for those services to be like $16,000.
Wow.
And you know, nearly $4,000 of that goes to council straight up for council fees, which is, you know, purchasing a plot in a graveyard and digging the hole, and the admin fees and stuff like that. But then, you know, there's big service fees on top of that and stuff like that. And I just think the funeral industry, like any other business at the moment, is a financially competitive industry, and I don't like that because I don't think it should be, because it's a service that everybody needs. It's like food, housing, you know, that kind of thing. It's one of those services. It's an essential service, but it's so expensive.
Yeah,
it's so expensive, and I just think I would love to do it this way, because then it doesn't have to be. It's not costing the environment, it's not costing the people, it's creating something productive that's giving back to the land that's been so taken from. So yeah, that's just another element of why this is a good idea.
Yeah,
this is a great idea.
Yeah, cutting down costs and making it more, it should just be as easy as putting the body in the ground. That's how it used to be, right? You dig a hole, you put the body in the ground, and that's pretty much it. The only thing is the digging part that's costing you labour. And then people were more in touch as well with the whole process of taking responsibility and being in contact with death as a part of life. Exactly.
And that was one of my, when that day in the gully, when this idea first sort of sprang up, that was one of my feelings too, was that people can that way be more involved with the whole process, because there's a big disconnect with when a loved one dies. There's a big disconnect, because they go to the funeral home and then a lot of that is all the bathing's taken care of, the prep's been taken care of. The next time they see their loved one is in the coffin, whether that's with an open casket or a closed casket, like maybe they don't see their loved one again physically. Sometimes they want to have a viewing and then they'll see the body again, but there's like this disconnect in that time in between of the passing, and then their loved one gets taken, then they see the body, and it's sort of just feels like everything's gone this really weird, unnatural direction.
Like sterile and just, I think we just so don't want to think about own death because we're terrified of it being the end, and we're so holding on for dear life, no pun intended. You know, just really to something that is God designed to be ephemeral or temporary, as in it comes and goes, as in maybe ephemeral is not the right word, definitely temporary, the beginning of life and then continuation of life, but not in this physical form. And this is where it brings us down to the exciting topic of mediumship, because you initially were excited about this because of your love of the ability to speak with spirits. And tell us more about it. When you're working, well, first of all, tell us what mediumship actually is. Define it for us in this correct definition of what it is.
So I would say it's just the communication between people still in the physical life, on the physical earth, and people that are in the spirit life, in the spirit world. So it's just the communication. And the ability to do so. So everybody's got the ability to do so. It's like a faculty of our soul that God gave us, you know, and that's what Jesus and Mary have taught us in Divine Truth, and that's what's helped me understand so much more. It's just coming across Divine Truth has helped me understand mediumship so much more. But basically, that's what it is. It's just communication between us and the spirits.
And we are spirits. So besides our body here, we've got almost the same body, but a physical body and a spiritual nature. And so the exciting part is, so you've obviously, did you have some idea, or did you have communication with spirits abilities as far as you can remember as a young child? Like, where did it develop and how did it evolve?
Yeah. Yes. Although I wouldn't have thought that that's what was happening, but in hindsight, yes. And so, yeah, that's just been there the whole way along. And fortunately remained open thanks to my mum, like having a belief in the spirit world, and not like a real education about it or an understanding of exactly, you know, everything that's happening, but an openness to it and a knowledge that it, you know, basically coexists alongside physical life. There's the spirit life that's happening, you know, like the spirit world, there's spirits around us. It's just an everyday thing. And so, yeah, she specifically, she just really trusted in angels, and she had experiences when she was a child that led her to fully, wholeheartedly believe that angels are around. And so being brought up in that environment with her, and the constant reference to the angels and the constant, I guess, reference or openness to the supernatural, it helped keep my mediumship open, where a lot of people, the mediumship gets shut down more because there's not that openness maintained throughout childhood, or they get told to just quieten down when they've got, you know, have an imaginary friend, or they're having spirits in their room at night or things like that, or they don't even talk to their parents because they just know there'll be like a lack of understanding at best, or punishment at worst. And so it gets shut down for so many people. But fortunately, and sometimes I feel it's unfortunate, but mainly now I feel it's fortunate, like my mediumship was left open because of the type of upbringing that I had. Yeah. And then obviously you've discovered more about mediumship and what it entails, and what loving way to conduct mediumship, and how to love people in the spirit world through the Divine Truth teachings, which we'll put a link to, because that's what I've learned about it. That's how we met as well. From mutual interest in Divine Truth. So
and so with mediumship, I guess it really relates to this wholesomeness of this idea that we have to create grounds, and as well as the space to be able to help people that have passed, as well as people not only with their bodies, but as well as the people that have loved them or love them, to have a much more realistic, real experience of what death is, but also the communication channel, because you'll be able to communicate with these spirits. You do communicate with spirits. Some of them come to you when you're dealing with their bodies at work.
What
so kind of state are they in?
It varies depending on the person and their age and the nature of their passing. There's been a lot, especially when I was doing more work in the mortuary, I would talk to them a lot more as well. So I do miss that aspect of it a bit, because I don't feel like I'm doing as much mediumship work as I used to. But I've experienced a whole range of things. Like, some people are asking me what happened. Like, how did they die? Like, there was a man who died of a heart attack who didn't know what had happened, you know. And some of them are stressed out about things like, what's going to happen to my son? What's going to happen to my dog? You know, stuff like that. Some of them knew that it was coming. Like, the elderly people are often, especially the elderly women, they often feel more accepting of it, but at the same time, still, there's not a knowledge or a focus or even an interest in what the spirit life now holds for them. There's still so much focus still back on the earth. Like, that's been their whole life, and that's what they're still focused on. And then I've had people who are really freaking out. And then I've had people that are happy to have a chat, and I try and introduce them to a helpful spirit who's been in the spirit world for longer than them, that can be their friend and introduce them to their new life and their potentials, and how they can still stay in touch with their family in a healthy way and stuff like that. So there's a huge range of responses that I've personally experienced. And some people die traumatically. So some people are telling me, you know, this is who killed me, or, you know, what, how could this happen to me? This can't be right. Like, I'm only 30, you know, stuff like that. So there's a lot of, and it's just very normal. It's like, they're just a spirit now. There's nothing to be sort of afraid of, in the sense of just spirits in general. Like, it's just that you've lost your physical body, but you're still who you are. You still had your same thoughts that you had. You still care about the same things that you cared about. And so it's just like having a chat to them if they were still alive in a sense, except that this sort of major transition has happened. Yeah.
And so obviously having someone like yourself working in the industry, but also just being there with the body as well, because people are just like, wow, like they're still thinking, can I re-enter this body? Because no one taught them about death, and yeah, as you say, a lot of it is trauma and they're not prepared for it. That's a very, very useful service to help people with passing, and that's something that should be taught so that everybody on earth learns that our life doesn't end. And then, of course, the family side of things as well. Like, I would like to know if some, when members of my family pass, I'd like to know, like, what, like, if I care, where did you go? What's happened? What's happening for you? If I can't do it myself, the mediumship part of things, I could ask someone like yourself to help with that, which is a lovely service, I think, to humanity. And it needs to be seen more as a service and a great gift and an essential one, because it would allay a lot of fear. Because we're terrified of death and we're terrified of the spirit world. If we believe it, because we think we're going to go to hell or heaven. Most people probably know that we're going to go to hell because the world is in a hellish condition. It's like this, such an essential thing, and I think it ties in so nicely that it should be part of a funeral service, part of the service. And I suppose for people that might go, oh my God, these are two crazy women talking about the spirit world or spirits, or that we're spirits, or there's a spiritual nature. When you think about it, like, it's such a scientific, it could be so scientifically easily proven that it happens. Just even if I said, okay, my grandma died, can you tell me that this is my grandma? And you can tell me facts about her that only she would know, and you might not know me. Say I'm Joe Blogg from down the road. That it's just so easily verifiable, and it's just scientific fact. And so whether you like it or not, it's just a fact, and it's a lovely thing to be able to know. Not that I for sure have still 100% feelings inside of me that are like, I don't feel spirits as well as you do, or hear them as well, Sometimes I have some recognition of that it's happening, and I know as a child I was terrified because I was, it comes down to the terror of being a child and being told certain things, or threatened, or spirits threatening you because there are nasty spirits out there. So, and a lot of religious dogma sort of taught to us that isn't correct. So that if you talk to spirits, you're evil. There's all these misconceptions. So this can all be nutted out, educationally dispelled, and proven and shown. And
people wouldn't have to have as much turmoil and grief, and the idea of it isn't to sort of like save everybody from their sadness, but if it's alleviating unnecessary suffering, that's a good thing, and that's what truth does. And it's like truth is the sort of like the thing that can help people with their fear and stuff like that, or their unknowing, or their just some of the deep grief that I see in people because they think that they're now forever separated. Or at best they're separated until they themselves pass, and it's like, no, that your loved one's standing right next to you, and you could still maintain the communication and the connection and the relationship if only you knew all this stuff. And that's why I'd like to have my own business so that I can talk freely about this kind of thing and not sort of
and people would seek you out for that particular service too,
maybe
because like, how often do you even get to talk to the people that come, or do you have the time to even go, hey, that person's actually still...
No,
there's not much room
often
for that.
And because also I work for someone else, I sort of, and that it makes it trickier to like, how much do you say, and this isn't my company, and this isn't, I don't know if that's what
they're
I
not
should
seeking
be doing.
your services in that. So this is where I think, once again, the most amazing opportunity to have something of your own that you can set up and basically run according to how love would run it. The truth, the truthful side of things. I mean, it can be the most truthful, incredibly gift to the world, a service,
and just so much more gentle in every way, like gentle spiritually, emotionally, physically, environmentally, like that's what I think a funeral service should be. Like, I love my job beyond mediumship, and I don't know, just the environmental side. Like there's more to this industry that I love. Like I love talking to people. I love officiating funeral services. I love speaking with people in their grief and hearing, you know, stories about their loved ones and stuff. And I just think, to me, if I can provide a kind and gentle service to people in one of the hardest times of their lives, that's the goal. But I think that could be extended so much more than what I can currently do in my job, because it could be gentle in so many more aspects, you know, like but gentleness and truth and kindness, it could just be a complete revolutionization of how it's currently done.
Absolutely. And not to mention, as you said, you know, some people get killed, and then it becomes a murder mystery. You could help solve those mysteries working with the police force. If there is, you know, there are so many things, or even not, if not with the police, but the forensic side of things, you know, the spirits are dying, no pun intended again, but are dying to tell the truth of what happened to people. You know, they want the truth to be out there, and I think that's just one that's just like another good aspect of it, which is, you know, solving what other aspects of mediumship where it would, like, what are the real great benefits. There are thousands of benefits that
so many. I think like some that we already mentioned, like it would take away people's fear of losing their loved ones and also losing their own life, if they understand that there's a spirit world and there's a continuation, and that the relationships continue, and that you go somewhere where you, after you pass, and it's based on, you know, the condition of who you are as a person and stuff. Maybe that instills more fear, I don't know. But I think then there's the aspect of you know, solving crimes and you know, unanswered questions and things like that. You know, helping children, helping people throughout their lives in terms of what's really going on when they've got addictions or mental health issues or things like that.
Helping them to
spirit influence, like why does my child seem to be reincarnated? You know, because when, you know, reincarnation is not true in the mainstream way that Earth seems to think it is, and so there's just so much untruth that could just be straightened out, you know, and it's not, you know, you're not suffering in this life because of your past life, and you're not, you know, there's not all these things that are happening for the reasons that you think they're happening. A lot of things are set up by spirits, and relationships, deaths, you know, and it's like if people also could have contact with their guides and guardians, they could have a much better existence in their earth life, and then be more educated going into their spirit life. They could be more prepared for their spirit life.
We could be doing things right now that will make our spirit life, not only do we, you know, Jesus often talks to us about preparing for a trip, as in like we prepare for our trip to go to New Zealand, wherever, you know, on holidays, but we're going on this extended trip from which we cannot come back, and we're already setting up our life in, you know, we're already living there while we're asleep, and you know, and we're not preparing for that at all, because, and then no wonder we're like, when we die, we're completely freaked out by the whole idea of not being prepared. And I think because we're so wanted out of our minds, because we're so terrified, I think just the terror of it is a crazy state to be in. Like the world is in that state all the time, and we're all terrified. And I just think that education is the key to everything, you know, and
especially as well for parents who have lost children or lost babies, or just all the truth that can be told about what really happens when you die. I just think that would just benefit people's lives and the state of the world so much. Absolutely. And also, you know, earlier we were talking about, you know, because you especially are passionate about the physical, like the scientific aspect of breaking down a body and stuff like that, and you know, I find it interesting too, but it's sort of like we can joke about you know, breaking down bodies and stuff, but a lot of people find that really freaky and scary to think about, and I think it's partly because there's not a detachment from the physical body being that person. It's like that person is now in the spirit world. They're standing next to you, even though their dead body is here. So we can sort of talk about it like, you know, it's just a body. But there's not that separation. I feel like people often cling to the physical body because they don't understand the spirit life and continuation of the existence, and that the body isn't your person anymore. Like your person is still alive and existing, and the body was just their vehicle that they lived in. And I think that it's ceremoniously, it's nice to have a goodbye with that physical body. Like that's the body of the person that you have known and loved and touched and hugged and kissed and laughed with and cried with and all of these things. And it's almost like a bit of a breakup to me. It seems like the spirit is kind of breaking up with their own body in some ways as well. But I think that there would be less call or demand for embalming services, and you know, it's got to be
which
in
is
the fancy
so
coffin.
toxic and terrible.
Because
and expensive.
Because you can still honor the person or still be speaking with the person, and you're not having to make this whole elaborate and toxic situation with the physical remains of the person. So I think that would be a benefit of the mediumship being talked about as well.
Absolutely. With the embalming and stuff, not only is it like huge, like pretty bad nasty chemicals like formaldehyde, which is carcinogenic, and people have to deal with it, the people doing the embalming. What does it involve? It involves, tell us what it does.
So embalming is basically where you're wanting to preserve the body. So this doesn't happen with everybody in Australia. I think in some places it does. Like I feel like in the US, some places they'll embalm everybody, which I don't know why you would, but because that's going to delay the breakdown process for like at least 20-25 years, and then when it finally does, there's all this formaldehyde. It's so toxic when you're doing. I've assisted a few embalmings, and when you it's so toxic to breathe in. It stinks. It's poison. It's pink poison, and the idea is to pump it into the major arteries, and so you're basically almost pushing the blood out and replacing it with the embalming fluid. So it brings like a rosy pinkish look to the body, but it also pumps everything up and preserves the body. So like you might do that if you didn't want the body to decompose because the funeral can't be for a month for some reason or something like that, or if the body needs to get repatriated back to its home country, or you know, people have reasons for wanting to preserve a body, but it is really toxic. And so, that's basically what it is you're basically replacing the blood with the formaldehyde so that the body doesn't break down.
Terrible.
Yeah, and it's extremely, like you said, it's carcinogenic, so it's hard on the people who are doing the work, but it's also, I just think that's going to leak into the groundwater.
Yeah.
You know, like what is going to be left that's not poisoned?
Yeah, if everyone does it, it's obviously, this is why it needs to happen. So the idea would be like what we would love to do, and you know, in whatever capacity, whether we do it together or whether you set up a business and get contracted, whatever. The idea would be, I think, really just have a block of land that's damaged. That's what I'm thinking. You know, just damaged block of land, set up the services on the land, and also
funeral home, the burial location,
and then do the regenerative process of the earth. You know, get an excavator that we could either hire out or own. I've got a ticket on how to dig the trenches already. Dug a few graves. Good. Just, you know, get the permits from the council, and to do it, it's in Queensland. It's dealing with councils on council basis. So basically just getting the permissions and plans. And the only thing really we need right now is land, you know, someone that's got a piece of damaged land and a facility to create that potential, and doing a lot of research, background research to it, and company research and things like that, you know. But I think just the idea of, I'm just thinking, gosh, if there was a piece of land that this could be done on, where it's accessible to, well, people already in our area, but at least like within the Kingaroa area, because this is where we live, it can get done. And this is a major agricultural centre as well, so there's a lot of damaged land.
So much damaged land. And I bring my statistics. Because, like, you know, we're talking about regenerating land and planting trees and things, and there was something that we just read earlier, just about the the actual trees themselves, like the amount of trees that we're losing. And when you think of one large tree is the equivalent of like 10 air conditioners when it comes to cooling effect. And so we're losing about 330,000 hectares of trees in Queensland every year, which is 6 Brisbane CBDs a day.
That's enormous.
I don't know how that's possible, but that's happening.
Queensland is the worst clearing state in Australia, and it's on par with Brazil, how Amazon's getting cut down. In fact, I think we're now exceeding deforestation.
Really?
Yeah. It's
Queensland,
yeah.
Wow. So, like, this is the place to do it.
This is the place to get our bodies into action of growing trees.
Yes.
There's enormous potential in those bodies, despite all the chemical and things we talked about. There's so much nutrient in here, and all the bones, we basically took earth elements into our bodies, and they are still in us, and they just need to go back to the ground.
And could you maybe give like a brief overview to, like, I don't know, encourage the passion in this idea of what the biotic pump is and why we need trees for rain?
Yeah.
Because I'm thinking driest continent, and then this is the state where we're losing that many trees. Why do we need trees?
Yeah.
Do we really need trees?
Yeah. If we want to breathe,
yes, we do.
Yeah, and
that's if we want
problem.
rain, that's the thing.
Right.
I don't know if I don't know if like I didn't know this until recently. The relationship between having trees and attracting rain.
When you think about it, like we live, beyond the range, we don't get this area, the South Burnett, is a major agricultural centre for Queensland. Yeah. And so we are far enough from the ocean that we don't get the hit of the sort of ocean, what the coast gets in terms of rain. So all the climate that is around there, and the ocean forms the clouds because of evaporation, comes down to a certain level. Sometimes we get a little bit of, most of it we don't. We rely on trees. That's where majority of landscapes, this is where, especially large continents like that, where the ocean is quite far apart from, from either of the, away from the perimeter. Yeah. We rely on the transpiration of trees. So what it is the tree needs water. Yeah. It takes up the water through its vein network. It goes up, and the capillaries in the leaves ensure that there's a big draw because they're really tiny compared to the roots having larger pore size to take up the water. And when that happens, you've got this capillary action where the water is drawn up, and as that happens, because the tree has to exchange gases to get carbon dioxide, which is our own out-breath, which I love that symbiosis between us and trees, completely reliant on one another. We breathe out carbon dioxide. The tree requires that to make sugar, to put into the ground and feed all the organisms, and then exchange that for its nutrients. And then you've got, as the stomata, which are these little holes, these little openings in the leaf, as they open up, they're taking that carbon dioxide that we breathe out and release their waste, which is oxygen, which is what we need, Yeah. And I love that symbiotic relationship between us and trees or plants in general, that they rely on our waste, we rely on their waste. Yeah. And that, in that process, water evaporates as well, So a lot of trees will open up their stomata only during the night, especially in hotter climates. So every time the tree breathes, it releases water into the atmosphere. Yeah. And if you've got enough trees doing that, you get clouds forming. And then the fungal spores come up in forests as well, which obviously we require wood for fungi to grow. And those spores nucleate the water droplets in the atmosphere, and that's what forms rain. So it's the spores of bacteria and fungi that are actually, pretty sure bacterial spores would do very similar, but it's that nucleation process to actually make it heavy enough to come down.
So that's why we need the trees to get the rain. Because in my non-scientific version of what you just said, I understand it as it's almost like the trees talk to the clouds to get the rain. There's a relationship there. So it's like if you don't have forests
Yes.
you're not going to get then rain.
No.
It's not just a case of clouds need to come and just fall rain.
The clouds
on us.
have
They
to
need
form.
the trees actually form the clouds.
That's
and,
right.
Yeah.
That's why you've got like cloud forest. Like if you go to the Banyan Mountains, which is our only remaining like sort of largish, very small national park.
Yeah.
When you go there, it's meant to be a cloud forest, and when you're there at like sort of evening and in the morning, early in the morning, there's a big. It's like a cloud going through the whole forest. You know, it's very dense. It's like huge fog, wet fog coming through, and that's because the trees have transpired overnight and released all of this moisture, and that it just hangs in the air.
And it's so much cooler up there when you go up there on a hot day. You've come from Kingaroy or something, and you go up there. It's so cool because the trees cool everything.
Exactly. We need that moisture in the air is what cools it, and that's what we need, you know. And we, without trees, we're gonna die. And we want to die in a way if we want to feed the land, but we need to also do it in a way where it can be fed rather than just burning us up and making less oxygen and more carbon dioxide available. You know.
And I sort of sometimes you sort of think, you know, there's a tendency to think, what's one little funeral home gonna do for this climate crisis? But I often think, but you have to do something, and then you can teach other people how to do it. And you don't know, you can start the rehabilitation of a forest. Like God's laws, it seems, you know, we've seen it ourselves when you're trying to regenerate some land. It just needs a bit of help, or even it just needs to be left alone. But with a bit of help, it can regenerate pretty fast. It responds. And so it's like, I think, you know, it seems like we're quite close to the brink, but not quite beyond it. And I think
and even if we were beyond it, like I would still do everything in my power to do something, you know. And it's like, whatever it is, we all have the capacity, and if one person does it, and as you say, you educate just by doing and being, and people asking you questions, and it starts with one person, you know. And I think the combo between the two of our passions coming together is pretty cool.
It's really cool.
And unique.
Yeah.
And I think, you know, having that whole, I love the holistic nature of it.
Me too.
All the way from the, you know, we're taking care of the people dying, the people
living,
the people going, the trees
breathing.
growing, the body decomposing, like the whole thing.
Yeah.
You know, and making it as real as it possibly can be. I remember when we once talked about this, we were making jokes about having like a mincing the body up first so it can go quicker into the ground and decompose much faster, which probably is still not a bad idea.
Yeah.
Especially that they do grind those bones up at the end, but
they do.
Probably don't need to go as far as that.
Yeah.
And
people might not.
Having a giant
boundaries up already.
Let's push all of them. We've got to be
future
innovative.
plans.
Sometimes, you know, innovation happens in the craziest of ways, and sometimes it might be a good idea, and we will see. We'll see how it goes. But no, I think beautifully burying, like just like an animal dies, you know, slowly. The organisms, usually it's like I've seen, you know, wallabies and things, and they blow up, the microbes, sort of the gas starts escaping, there's ruptures, and then there's flies landing. Usually if you do it sort of above ground, there's all of these beautiful organisms that we also don't like very much, like flies coming in and doing all this beautiful decomposition, you know, and the maggots sort of get in, and it's all just like, to me it's amazing, the biodiversity of a body, of a decomposing body. It won't happen so much in the ground. It's much more, unless flies are able to lay their eggs and things, you know, so it's a very different, much gentler, much sort of less explosive way, slower, and still very, very, very quick, but because it's microbial, it's different. And I'd love to one day be able to experiment and see what actually happens there, you know, put the microbes under the microscope, maybe not with a human body, but definitely with animals, because it all needs to be studied so we understand, you know, the actual processes and the scientific sort of stages that the process happens in, once again for education purposes, and our own marvels at God creations. God's creations and God's laws and processes in all of that decomposition. Like, I just love the cleanup system, you know, the flies, the maggots.
It's so clean if you do it as close to possible as nature. And that's another reason why I don't like the alkaline hydrolysis as a new solution, because it's not natural. Whereas what we're talking about here is working in harmony with the nature's laws already.
Right. Yeah.
Whereas boiling someone in a cylinder, that's like not natural. That's not natural. And also I think people would go for this idea that we have if it was available, but it's not available. Like natural burials are available in our country, but you know, people would go for these ideas. They just need to be there, available. No, people do care about these things. So
I so look forward to digging in our first grave.
Me too.
Where we're actually going to place a body in. So if anyone wants to volunteer their bodies, let us know. We're going to start the ball rolling. Yeah. We just need to figure out how to get the cash and the land and the...
That's it, the land, the facility. And when I say the facility, it's like a funeral home, so like an actual building, and then also
with
like a mortuary.
Crematorium.
No,
sorry.
A mortuary.
Sorry, mortuary, not crematorium. It's getting late. No, we're not cremating anyone.
No,
ever.
No.
That sounds great.
Yeah. That's all we need.
Yeah, not much. Yeah. We can do it.
We can do it.
No, but seriously, I think it's one of the best business ideas ever.
I think so too.
And if anyone's done it out there, we need to find you. But I think, with the mediumship and everything, I think it's quite unique. Yeah, and I think we could share it. We could share the process of it. You know how Katrina Spade has shared her recomposting and other people have done it. We can share doing it this way. This might be more appropriate for other people in other parts of the world that aren't in cities. Yeah. So and opportunities for training, like in both sides, the physical decomposition, the mediumship part. Because training people
sessions or education sessions,
a facility because it needs to, it's just too huge. Well, so many things get solved in doing it this way. Would be basically solving so many different issues of where we are right now, and bringing awareness to even like talking about how toxic the bodies are. How each one of us, do we want to contribute to that by eating what we eat or using medications? And once again, mediumship and understanding the emotional nature of being a human, the human soul. And, you know, having that as part of the education process means people care more for themselves and what they do to themselves while they're alive. And also care for their spirit life by preparing for it. You know, there's so many beautiful benefits.
So many.
They're endless. We're just talking tiny beginnings of what we can conceive now. You know. So I think it can go a long way. Yeah,
it's exciting.
Exactly. Yeah. Well, thank you very much, Brittany.
Thank you, Sandy.
Again, not in the valley this time. No, it's been lovely, and let's see what else we can come up with, and let's get this ball rolling. Yeah. All right, I'll turn it off.
Oh my God.
See you guys.
Say